On my biggest career breakthrough, my family was nowhere to be found. Confused, I call my mom. Hey Reddit, my name is Ethan, and at 28, I've dedicated the past 6 years of my life to architecture. Not just drawing pretty buildings, but the kind of intense, soul-crushing work that demands every ounce of your focus. Late nights fueled by lukewarm coffee and a relentless pursuit of perfection. All of it for this one moment. Today was the day I presented my design for the new downtown revitalization project. This wasn't some run-of-the-mill office building. This was a landmark, a project that could define my career. I poured my heart and soul into it, sacrificing weekends, holidays, even a few relationships along the way, all to prove I could make it. And guess what? I nailed it. The presentation was flawless, the client was ecstatic, and the senior partners at the firm were practically beaming. It felt like I'd finally climbed a mountain I'd been staring at for years, and standing at the summit, all I wanted was to share that view. You'd think a moment like that, a real, undeniable breakthrough after years of grinding, will be something my family will want to celebrate, right? A simple congratulations, son, we're proud of you, would have been enough. But honestly, deep down, a familiar, bitter voice whispered that I was probably asking too much. My parents, Mr. and Mrs. Hayes, have always operated on a different wavelength when it comes to their two sons. I was the responsible one, the old soul, who handled things. My younger brother, Marcus, well, he was the fragile, artistic genius. He needed all the attention, all the praise, all the emotional and financial support. My straight A's in school were met with a casual nod, while Marcus's crayon drawing of a lopsided house was framed and hung in the living room for years. While I got into a top-tier architecture program on scholarship, my dad just said, "Good, that saves us money." When Marcus dropped out of community college after 2 semesters to pursue performance art, they bankrolled his dubious ventures for years, telling everyone how brave he was. It was a constant, low hum of favoritism, always there, always chipping away. Still, a part of me, the hopelessly optimistic part, clung to the hope that this time, this monumental achievement, would finally be different. I pulled out my phone, my fingers hovering over the family group chat. My heart was pounding, a strange mix of pride and vulnerability. I typed out a quick message. Just finished the presentation. It was a huge success. Feeling incredible. Are we still on for dinner tonight to celebrate? I hit send, a small smile playing on my lips. Then nothing. An hour passed. 2, 3. I tried to focus on the congratulatory emails flooding my inbox, the excited chatter of my colleagues, but a cold dread began to creep in. By late afternoon, the sinking feeling in my stomach was unbearable. Finally, I swallowed my pride and called my mom. She picked up on the second ring, her voice surprisingly upbeat, almost too casual. "Hey, Ethan, what's up?" I hesitated, my heart thumping against my ribs. Hey, Mom, just wanted to see, are we still doing dinner tonight? For the project." There was a beat of silence, then a soft, dismissive sigh. "Oh, honey," she said, her voice dripping with artificial sweetness. "I should have told you earlier. We're actually out with Marcus tonight." My stomach dropped. "You're what?" The words felt hollow, even to me. She sounded almost bored. "Yes, well, Marcus had some exciting news." I blinked. Exciting news? My mind reeled. Was this a new job? A gallery showing? I could hear muffled sounds in the background, a cacophony of laughter and clinking glasses. "He's decided to go all in on that new eco-friendly crypto farming venture," she continued, a faint note of forced enthusiasm in her voice. It's very cutting edge. Your father and I are just trying to support him through this pivotal moment." My jaw tightened. Eco-friendly crypto farming. I'd read about that scam. Marcus had probably sunk every penny of his trust fund into it, and now my parents were inevitably pouring more money down the drain. This wasn't exciting news. It was another crisis. "But it's my project, Mom." I managed, the words barely a whisper. "This is huge for me." She laughed, a short, sharp sound, like I was a little kid whining about a broken toy. "Oh, Ethan, don't be so dramatic. It's just work. You'll have plenty of other projects. Marcus needs us right now. We'll do something for you next weekend." "Okay." In the background, I heard Marcus's voice, slurred and self-satisfied. Is that Ethan? Tell him to send me some of that architect money when he gets it. We'll save him some organic, fair trade kombucha leftovers. More laughter. My face burned. This wasn't just neglect. This was deliberate. They weren't just overlooking me. They were actively choosing to diminish my triumph for Marcus's latest folly. I could have argued. I could have yelled. But what was the point? They knew exactly what they were doing. They just didn't care. So I swallowed the bitter lump in my throat. Yeah, sure, Mom. Have fun. And then, before I could hear another word, I hung up. I sat there for a long moment, staring at my phone. My hands were shaking, not from sadness, no. I was absolutely seething. The silence in my apartment after that call was deafening. It vibrated with the raw, throbbing pulse of my anger. It wasn't a quiet anger. It was a roaring furnace in my chest, burning away years of suppressed frustration. They had done it again. Not just ignored me, but actively chosen to prioritize a blatant financial disaster over my biggest professional achievement. It was a slap in the face, a clear message. You're not important enough for our time, our energy, or our love. The weight of all those years of being second best, of feeling invisible, pressed down on me, heavy and suffocating. Then a thought, clear and sharp, cut through the haze of my fury. No, not this time. I wouldn't just sit here and let it fester. I wouldn't let them have the satisfaction of thinking their neglect didn't sting. I had people who genuinely cared, people who consistently showed up for me, not out of obligation, but out of love. I picked up my phone again, my fingers flying across the screen. This time I called Sarah, my girlfriend. She answered immediately, her voice warm and melodious. Hey babe, how did the presentation go? I've been dying to know. I took a shaky breath, trying to keep my voice even, but the tremor was undeniable. It went great, Sarah. Amazing, actually. But something else happened. She sensed it instantly. What's wrong? You sound upset. I told her everything, the words tumbling out in a rush, detailing the call, Marcus's latest venture, the dismissive laughter. I waited, bracing myself for her sympathy, which I knew would be heartfelt. But what she said next surprised me. That's it, she declared, her voice firm. That's absolutely it. We're not letting this ruin your night, Ethan. You worked too hard for this. Come over to my parents' place. They're already excited to hear about your success. We'll celebrate properly. My dad even picked up a bottle of that fancy whiskey you like. A wave of profound relief washed over me. Sarah's family, the Millers, had been a revelation since I started dating her 3 years ago. They were everything my own family wasn't. Warm, open, genuinely interested. I remembered a time, early in our relationship, when I'd had a minor career setback. My parents barely acknowledged it. But Mrs. Miller had called me, not to offer advice, but just to say, we know how much this means to you, Ethan. We're so proud of your dedication, no matter what happens. That simple act of acknowledgement had meant more to me than years of my parents' empty platitudes. When I arrived at their cozy, inviting home, Mrs. Miller greeted me with a hug that felt like a full embrace of my entire being. Happy Breakthrough Day, sweetheart, she exclaimed, her eyes twinkling. Come in, come in. Sarah's dad is already pouring the drinks. We ended up at this fantastic little Italian bistro. Not pretentious, but known for its incredible food and intimate atmosphere. The kind of place where real celebrations happened. Throughout the evening, the Millers listened, truly listened, as I recounted the triumphs and challenges of the project. Mr. Miller, a retired engineer with a keen eye for detail, asked insightful questions about the structural integrity and the sustainable elements. Mrs. Miller cooed over the design sketches. I showed them on my phone. They toasted my success, not just once, but multiple times, each toast more heartfelt than the last. Sarah squeezed my hand under the table, her eyes shining with pride. For the first time all day, I didn't just feel wanted, I felt seen. I felt like I belonged. It was during dessert, as Mr. Miller was recounting a story about his own career breakthroughs, that the idea sparked. It wasn't about anger anymore, not entirely. It was about claiming my truth, about acknowledging the people who actually showed up, who genuinely cared. I discreetly took a picture. It wasn't a selfie with a forced smile. It was a candid shot of the table, bathed in the soft, warm glow of the restaurant lights. Sarah laughing, Mr. Miller mid-story, Mrs. Miller's hand resting affectionately on his. In the corner, almost as an afterthought, was a small rendering of my building project, subtly visible on my tablet. I then crafted a caption, carefully. No direct insults, no bitter complaints. Just pure, unadulterated gratitude. Beyond thrilled to have officially launched my biggest project yet. Huge thanks to Sarah and her incredible family for celebrating this monumental milestone with me. So grateful for the people who truly show up and uplift. I hit post, a sense of quiet satisfaction spreading through me. The trap, unknowingly, was set. I didn't expect an immediate reaction from my parents. I figured they'd be too engrossed in Marcus's latest financial escapade, or perhaps they wouldn't even check social media until the next morning. But less than an hour later, as we were lingering over coffee and the last crumbs of tiramisu, my phone started to vibrate, and then it didn't stop. First, a text from my mom. Her name flashed across the screen, a chilling beacon of impending fury. Ethan, what is this post? Take it down now. Then my dad. Are you serious right now? Are you trying to humiliate us? The phone began to ring, and ring, and ring. Multiple calls, one after another, from both of them. My lips curled into a slow, satisfied smirk. This wasn't guilt they were feeling. This wasn't regret. This was pure, unadulterated wounded pride. My parents, who curated their online image with the meticulousness of a museum archivist, who loved playing the role of the perfect, supportive family, were suddenly facing a narrative they couldn't control. They thrived on public perception, on being seen as benevolent, selfless figures. And I had just shattered that illusion with a single, innocent-looking post. I let it ring, watching their names flash repeatedly, the sheer desperation in their actions almost comical. Then, on the fourth incoming call from my mom, I finally picked up, my voice deliberately casual, almost bored. Oh, hey, Mom. What's up? She didn't even bother with a greeting. What the hell are you doing, Ethan? People are seeing this. Your aunts, your uncles, Mrs. Henderson from church. You're making us look like monsters. Her voice was sharp, cutting through the pleasant atmosphere of the bistro. I held back a laugh, genuinely amused. I'm just thanking the people who actually showed up to celebrate my biggest career milestone, Mom. What's the problem? She gasped, a theatrical sound that grated on my nerves. How dare you try to embarrass us like this? You know we would have celebrated with you if we didn't have prior commitments. I snorted, unable to help myself. Oh, right. Marcus's exciting new crypto scam. Was that the prior commitment, Mom? Bailing out his latest disastrous investment? There was a stunned silence on her end, then a sharp intake of breath. We raised you, Ethan, she snapped, her voice trembling with indignation. And this is how you repay us? By painting us as villains? By turning the family against us? I was done. So incredibly done. I took a deep, steadying breath. Mom, I said, my voice low and firm, if you didn't want to look like bad parents, you probably shouldn't have acted like bad parents. The line went dead quiet. Then my dad's voice, a low rumble, took over. Ethan, you need to take that post down. Now. I grinned, leaning back in my chair. No, Ethan. His voice was laced with a thinly veiled threat. If you don't take it down, there will be consequences. Oh, I challenged, my eyebrows raised. Like what, Dad? Are you going to ground me? Take away my phone? Oh, wait, you can't. Because I don't live under your roof anymore. You have zero control over me. That hit a nerve. I could hear him sputtering on the other end, my mom whispering furiously in the background. My dad's face, even over the phone, felt like it was turning an ugly shade of red. For a second, I thought he was going to lose it completely. We're coming over, he finally growled, his voice tight with barely suppressed rage. A rush of adrenaline shot through me, but I kept my voice steady, barely able to contain my smirk. All right, Dad. See you soon. And then I hung up. Sarah, who had been listening intently, raised an eyebrow. That was them, wasn't it? Oh, yeah, I said, shaking my head. They're absolutely furious. Apparently, I've embarrassed them beyond belief. Sarah rolled her eyes. God forbid they deal with the consequences of their own actions. Mr. Miller, who had been listening with a quiet, knowing expression from across the table, scoffed. "Let them come, Ethan. They should see what an actual loving family looks like." Mrs. Miller, ever the voice of reason, sighed. "This might get ugly. Are you sure you want to deal with them tonight?" I exhaled slowly, the decision firm in my mind. "Honestly, yeah, I do. I've spent years letting them treat me like an afterthought, years of watching them drop everything for Marcus while I was expected to just deal with it. And for the first time, I have the upper hand. They're desperate, scrambling to control the narrative. That means I'm finally doing something right." About 20 minutes later, the unmistakable growl of my parents' SUV pulled into the restaurant parking lot. I stood up, stretching casually as if I had all the time in the world, while Sarah gave my arm an encouraging squeeze. "You got this," she murmured, her eyes full of support. The doorbell was slammed 3 times in rapid succession. "Oh, they're mad. All right," Mr. Miller chuckled, rising from his chair. "I'll get it." The second he opened it, my mom stormed in like she owned the place, her face a mask of indignation. My dad followed, his jaw tight, his eyes immediately locking onto me. "Ethan," my mom's voice was sharp, cutting through the hushed ambience of the restaurant. "We need to talk. Now." I crossed my arms. "Go ahead." My gaze flickered around the room, taking in Sarah's parents, the cozy, intimate setting, the clear evidence that I was perfectly fine, thriving even without them. It clearly unsettled her. "Not here," she said stiffly, her eyes narrowing. "Come outside." "No thanks," I said, leaning back against the couch. "If you have something to say, you can say it right here." My dad clenched his fists. "Enough with the attitude, Ethan." I raised an eyebrow. "Attitude? Oh, you mean standing up for myself?" "Sorry, I'm still getting used to this whole having self-respect thing." My mom let out a sharp breath, her patience wearing thin. "We're not going to let you publicly shame us like this. Do you have any idea how many people have seen your post? Your aunts, your uncles, our colleagues. Do you know how humiliating it is to have our own son paint us as villains?" I blinked at her, then deadpanned, "Maybe don't be villains then." Sarah snorted, and even Mr. Miller fought back a chuckle. My mom's face turned a dangerous shade of crimson. "We are your parents, Ethan. We deserve some respect." "Respect," I echoed, a bitter laugh escaping my lips. "You mean like the respect you showed me when you ditched me on the biggest night of my career? Or when you laughed at me on the phone? Or when you made it abundantly clear that Marcus and his dubious crypto schemes will always come first?" I shook my head. "Sorry, I must have missed the part where you actually earn my respect." My dad took a step forward, his voice dangerously low. "You're being dramatic." "No," I shot back, meeting his glare. "I'm finally being honest." The tension in the room was thick, suffocating. My parents weren't used to this. They were used to me backing down, apologizing, folding under pressure. But not this time. Then, my mom's gaze landed on Sarah, more specifically, the way she was sitting so comfortably beside me, holding my hand like she belonged in my life. And that's when I saw it, the exact moment my mom realized that I had people now. People who weren't obligated to love me, but did anyway. People who saw my worth, something she never cared to do. And she absolutely hated it. "So this is what this is about," she said, her voice dripping with condescension. "You're trying to replace us with them?" Sarah stiffened beside me, but I just shrugged. "If the shoe fits." My dad scoffed. "Enough of this nonsense. You're taking that post down now." I grinned. "No." His nostrils flared. "Ethan, don't test me." "Or what?" I challenged, leaning forward. "What exactly are you going to do? Ground me? Take away my phone? Oh, wait, you can't because I don't live under your roof anymore. You have zero control over me." That hit a nerve. My dad's face turned an ugly shade of red, and for a second, I thought he was actually going to lose it. My mom, on the other hand, had gone eerily quiet, and that's when she played her trump card. "You're going to regret this, Ethan," she said softly, a chilling calm in her voice. "You don't realize what you're throwing away." I tilted my head. "What am I throwing away exactly?" She gave me a knowing look, a look that sent a cold chill down my spine. "Your inheritance, Ethan. Everything we've built." I couldn't help it. I actually laughed in her face. It was almost instinctual, a bitter, short bark that I couldn't hold back. Inheritance, I echoed, still chuckling. What inheritance? You think I need your money? You really don't get it, do you? She froze, clearly thrown off by my reaction. I leaned forward, crossing my arms. You've never done anything for me. You've made it clear, every chance you've gotten, that I'm not important enough for your time, your energy, or your love. So spare me the lecture about what I'm throwing away. Because guess what? You've got nothing left to give me. My mom's mouth opened and closed like a fish, her face twisted in a mix of confusion and anger. And if you think I'd ever accept anything from you after all this, you're delusional. I continued, shaking my head. I don't need your money. I don't need your fake love. You've already given me everything I need to know about you, and it's nothing I'm willing to keep around. My dad looked like he was about to explode. He took a deep breath, his fists clenched at his sides. You're ungrateful. You really want to throw away everything we've given you. I almost felt sorry for him, but then I remembered he had a choice too. He could have stood up for me. He could have actually been a parent instead of a lapdog to my mom's whims. He never did. No, I'm not ungrateful, I said calmly. But I'm not going to sit here and pretend I don't see the kind of people you are. You made your choices, and now I'm making mine. Mr. Miller gave me a reassuring nod from across the room, his eyes full of quiet pride. I noticed my mom flinch at that, and I couldn't help but feel a small sense of triumph. She had been so consumed with controlling my life that she'd never even stopped to think that I might be better off without her. You can't just cut us out of your life like this, my mom said, her voice trembling. We're your family. You'll regret this, Ethan. You'll come crawling back. Right? I said sarcastically. I'll be right there, begging for more empty promises and disrespect. But that'll never happen because guess what? You've already shown me who you really are. I stood up, my legs feeling surprisingly steady. And I'm done. So if you want to keep throwing threats and guilt trips at me, go ahead. But just know, I'm not falling for it anymore. My dad opened his mouth again, but this time he just snapped it shut. They had nothing left. The power they once held over me, the manipulation, the control, it was gone. My mom's eyes were practically burning with fury, but I didn't flinch. Instead, I turned to Sarah's parents, giving them a nod of appreciation. Thanks for letting me have this moment, I said softly. But I think it's time for them to leave. Mrs. Miller, ever the calm one, smiled and stood up. We were going to grab a drink in the kitchen. You two should talk. As they walked away, my mom's voice shot through the silence. You're making a mistake, Ethan. You'll see. I didn't even acknowledge her. I was done listening to their empty threats. I didn't need to say anything else. The silence between us was thick, suffocating, as my mom and dad stood there, still processing everything I'd just thrown at them. They had no idea what to do with me anymore. Their usual tactics, guilt, manipulation, the emotional blackmail they had always used to keep me under their thumb, weren't working. Not this time. I stood there feeling more powerful than I ever had in my entire life. It wasn't just the fact that I was finally standing up to them. It was the realization that I no longer cared about their approval. Sarah's parents stayed in the background, sensing the tension, but giving us the space we needed. I could feel their support without it ever needing to be said. They weren't just on my side. They were family in a way that felt real. And for the first time, I didn't feel like I had to apologize for existing. Finally, my dad spoke again, his voice low and dangerous. You think this is funny? You think you're going to get away with treating us like this? I locked eyes with him, unfazed. Get away with it, Dad? I've been trying to get away from you for years. The words hung in the air, stark and painful. It was like a weight I'd been carrying for so long finally lifted off my chest. My mom, still fuming, tried one last tactic. Her voice softened, but it was clear she was just as manipulative as ever. Ethan, we're parents. We've always been here for you. All we've ever wanted was to help you. Don't you remember all we've done for you? How we've always supported you? I shook my head, trying not to laugh again. Really? Is that what you think? Because I don't remember any of it. I remember being ignored, pushed aside, made to feel like I wasn't good enough. I remember being the last choice. But sure, if you want to pretend that you've been perfect, go ahead. Her face twisted in a mixture of shock and fury, and I could see the cracks in her perfect little world start to form. She hadn't expected me to fight back like this. She thought I would fold, that I would cave in and beg for their approval like I always had. But that wasn't who I was anymore. "This is your fault, Ethan," my mom spat, her voice shaking. "You're the one destroying this family. You think you can just replace us with them?" I looked at her, my eyes cold. "No, Mom. You've been replacing me my whole life. This is just me finally realizing I don't need you anymore. And you've already lost." She took a step forward, her eyes burning with rage. "I'm your mother. You will never get rid of me." I held up my hand, cutting her off. "I don't need to get rid of you. You've already done that to yourself. You've pushed me away for years. You've made it clear where your priorities lie, and I'm not on that list." Mr. Miller stepped forward, his calm demeanor cutting through the tension. "I think it's time for you two to leave now." His voice was steady, unshakable, and the finality in his tone made it clear there would be no more discussion. My mom stared at him, fury flashing in her eyes, but even she knew she was losing. My dad muttered something under his breath and started to walk toward the door, his shoulders tense. But he didn't say another word. They both walked out without another word, the door slamming behind them. I stood there, still processing everything that had just happened. It was surreal. Sarah came over and wrapped her arms around me. "You did it," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "You stood up for yourself. I'm so proud of you." I hugged her back, feeling a rush of relief wash over me. I don't even know how I did it. It's like they just finally don't have any power over me anymore. Her mom and dad came over and gave me encouraging pats on the back, but it was Sarah's words that really stuck with me. "You're not alone anymore. We got you back, always." The weight on my chest had finally lifted. For the first time, I could breathe without that constant pressure weighing me down. I could see a future where I didn't have to beg for scraps of love or attention, a future where I made my own choices, where I was in control. The whole night felt like a strange, surreal blur, but I knew one thing for sure. I had finally stood up for myself, and I wasn't going back. Hours passed, and the evening continued on in a strange kind of calm. The tension that had built up throughout the night seemed to have evaporated the moment my parents walked out the door. But that calmness didn't last long. Just as I started to relax, my phone buzzed. I glanced down at it, half expecting something mundane, but as I saw my mom's name flash across the screen, I could feel my blood pressure rise again. I didn't even want to look at it, but I did anyway. A text from her. "We're not done here. You'll regret this. We'll be contacting the lawyer about your inheritance. You'll pay for this." I could almost hear her shrill, venomous voice in my head as I read the message. It wasn't a threat, it was a promise, and I knew it. But the difference now was that it didn't scare me anymore. It didn't hold the weight it once did. I glanced at Sarah, who was sitting next to me, her parents giving us some space to just process the night. I showed her the message, and she let out a soft laugh. "Is she serious?" she asked, raising an eyebrow. "Dead serious," I muttered, but there was no trace of fear in my voice. If anything, I was amused. I hit the reply button, my fingers typing with confidence, almost like the words were coming from a part of me I didn't even know existed. "You're right. You won't be done here. But I'll tell you this. Keep your money. You can keep your inheritance. And when you decide you want to talk to me like an adult, without the threats and the manipulation, you know where to find me. But don't bother trying anything else. It won't work. And if you think I'm scared, you've got another thing coming." I had sent it, and the weight that had been on my shoulders for so long felt even lighter. It felt like I had closed a chapter of my life that had dragged on for way too long. Just as I put my phone down, it buzzed again. This time it was my dad. He didn't even bother with a message, just a string of angry voice notes. I clicked on the first one, listening to him rant about how I was ruining my life, how I was going to regret this, how I was throwing everything away. I'll let the message finish, then click the next one. Another tirade, the same insults, the same empty threats. And then another and another. They were getting more frantic, the desperation in his voice growing. But none of it hit home. I didn't even bother replying. I didn't need to. There was nothing left for me to say. Sarah's dad caught my eye from across the room, raising his eyebrows with a knowing look. "Everything okay?" I nodded, my lips curling into a small but satisfied smile. "Yeah, they're just not used to me standing up for myself. but they'll get over it. Sarah leaned in closer, wrapping her arms around me again. You've got this. They can't touch you anymore. And that was the truth. I realized something then. There was nothing they could take from me that mattered. Not their threats, not their manipulations, not even their inheritance. I'd already walked away from their version of family and stepped into something real. My phone buzzed again, and I glanced down. This time, it was a text from Marcus. Mom and Dad are furious with you. You really messed up this time. This whole thing with my venture is already stressful enough without your drama. I could feel the old anger bubbling up again, but this time, I wasn't going to let it control me. I wasn't going to get sucked into his drama, his victim complex. I wasn't going to play his game. Instead of replying, I looked at Sarah, smiling warmly. You know what? I said, standing up. I think it's time for a real celebration. I grabbed my jacket, turning to Sarah's parents with a grin. Let's go grab some drinks. We've got a lot to celebrate. As we left, I didn't feel the bitterness or regret I had expected. Instead, I felt like I was finally walking away from a life that had been holding me back into a future that was mine to shape. And as I stepped out into the cool night air, I realized that the family I'd been searching for, the family I had been longing for, had been here all along. Not in the people I was born to, but in the ones who chose to stand by me, who supported me, who cared about me. I didn't need anyone's approval anymore. I didn't need their toxic love or their manipulation. I had found something better, and nothing, not even their money or their threats, could take that away from me. And that, for the first time in my life, felt like true freedom. The initial weeks following the confrontation were eerily quiet. The constant barrage of texts and calls from my parents stopped abruptly after my final message. It was almost unnerving, this sudden void where their toxic presence used to be. For a while, I found myself instinctively reaching for my phone, half expecting another furious voicemail, another manipulative text. But there was nothing. It was the silence of a door finally slamming shut, a definitive end to a chapter one had dragged on for far too long. However, their attempts at retaliation weren't entirely absent, just subtler. Word filtered back to me through distant relatives, the ones still caught in my parents' orbit, about whispers and veiled accusations. Ethan's become so ungrateful. He's changed, just cutting off his own family for some girl. He's clearly too big for his britches now that he has a little success. They were trying to manage the narrative, but without my participation, their efforts felt hollow, almost pathetic. My professional reputation remained solid, insulated by genuine achievements and the respect of my colleagues. Their attempts to subtly undermine me withered on the vine. Then, about a month later, an unexpected text popped up on my phone. It was from my Uncle Ben, my dad's younger brother, a man I'd always considered distant, almost aloof. Ethan, the text read, I heard things. Just wanted to say, I'm proud of you. Always saw how they were with Marcus. Always wanted to say something. You did good, kid. Call me sometime if you want to grab a beer. No judgment, just conversation. A small, genuine crack in the facade. It showed me that not everyone in their circle was blind or complicit. It was a tiny beacon of quiet support, a reminder that humanity and genuine connection existed outside the suffocating grip of my immediate family. Meanwhile, Marcus continued his predictable trajectory. News of his eco-friendly crypto farming venture proved to be exactly what I expected, a spectacular failure. It wasn't long before I heard through mutual acquaintances that my parents were once again scrambling, pouring more money into the black hole of Marcus's disastrous decisions. He'd apparently moved back home, demanding their full, undivided attention, perpetually in crisis. Their absorption in his never-ending drama only solidified my decision. I'd walked away from that treadmill of codependency and chaos, and I had no desire to ever step back on it. My life, on the other hand, flourished. My career soared after the success of the downtown project. I was given more responsibility, more challenging assignments, and, eventually, a partnership offer that dwarfed any hypothetical inheritance my parents could have ever dangled over my head. My relationship with Sarah deepened into something profoundly beautiful and unshakable. Her family, The Millers truly became my family. We shared holidays, celebrated small victories, and comforted each other through life's inevitable bumps. There was a warmth, a genuine, easy affection that I'd never experienced in my childhood home. One evening, I sat on the Millers' porch, watching the sunset with Sarah and her parents, sharing stories and laughter. It was a simple moment, mundane even, but it was filled with an authenticity and love that made my past feel like a distant, monochrome dream. A few months ago, I had a brief, awkward encounter with my parents at a community event. They tried to maintain a facade of civility, forced smiles plastered on their faces, but the underlying tension was palpable. My mom even attempted a strained, "How have you been, dear?" I responded politely, firmly, keeping my answers brief and factual, showing no weakness, no desire for reconciliation. There was a glint of surprise, perhaps even a sliver of regret, in my father's eyes when he realized I wasn't crumbling. I had no need to play their game anymore. The constant pressure that had weighed on me for years, that subconscious need for their approval, had finally lifted. I no longer sought their validation. I was free to define my own success, to choose my own family, to chart my own course without the suffocating influence of their expectations and manipulations. The wound from my biological family might never fully heal, a faint scar on my soul, but it no longer dictated my path. I had found true happiness and belonging elsewhere, in the embrace of those who genuinely loved me for who I was, not for who they wanted me to be. So, Reddit, after all of this, I have to ask, was I out of line for finally drawing a line in the sand? Or did I do the right thing by walking away from a family that never truly saw me?